What up? I'm back. Sorry if I'm a little late with this one. Thank you guys so much for the support on the last video. I worked super hard on that one. So here's another. Lies of P is a game that slipped under my radar when I first saw the trailer. I thought the game was going to be super fire. After a while, I never heard about it again. Up until I looked at Game Pass and I saw that it was already out. I actually got the chance to play it, and boy did I have the most annoying time ever. I actually was going to scrap the entire review because I'm a Dark Souls guy and the game didn't play anything like it. It actually felt super janky to me until my sister made me realize that it was a good opportunity to get my thoughts out and make a review and try out the game, so I did. Shout out to my sister Annie Mae. This time I went back into it with a controller instead of a keyboard and mouse because in my opinion these games are played best with a controller. In this review I don't want to get too in depth because I would rather you experience the game yourself. You can see most of what there is to see from the recording, so I would just rather give my rating. And I know it sounds super unconventional, but after actually taking the time to play it, I really like it. For this video I'm going to be comparing it to a game I see most fit. Yes, it is a Souls-like game. It doesn't compare to any of these other Souls-like games, so I would rather compare it directly to a Dark Souls game. Which one, you might ask? Dark Souls 1 doesn't compare to it, in my opinion. Neither does Dark Souls 2, but I can definitely compare it to Dark Souls 3, and I'll explain why in a bit, so just hear me out. Lies of P is set in the late 19th century to the early 20th century. How did I figure that out? I googled it. It's set in the city of Krat in Europe, a place that was once beautiful, and it was a comfortable home for the wealthy until the puppets revolted. Not only was this shown in the cutscene, but Gemini, spelled Gemini, pronounced Gemini, briefly chats to Pinocchio about it. The world is beautiful, unwelcoming yet charming. It feels empty and cold. Of course, the only part that makes it feel less empty are all the puppets that you encounter. This is what makes it differ from Dark Souls 3. In Dark Souls 3, it feels like everything is much bigger than you. Like, you have to be the victor in this world where everything is so against you and so different from you. It's like you're fighting a bunch of demons. In Lies of P, you're a puppet too, taking on an important task to defeat the rogue puppets. You feel less different from the world around you, but you stand out more than the rest, which is why they love you so much in the hotel. Even though you're a puppet, you were made for this. The gameplay itself isn't bad. I like the mechanics. From the lying mechanics to the general battle mechanics, the game is really good. A huge gripe that I had from the beginning of my gameplay was the fact that it felt like dodging or blocking just never worked. I had to let the animation cycle play out before I could dodge. This is a Souls-like game, and that's kinda to be expected. Nothing can do it like a true Souls game. In this game, you have to be versatile and understand that you are not playing a Souls game. You are playing as Pinocchio. So there's a lot of differences. If you perfectly time your block, you get to regen some health. If you just block, you lose some health. Sometimes a lot of health. In Dark Souls, every time you block, you don't take damage. I'm not going to get into the parry feature, and I don't know if you can do that in this game because I was only really working with the mechanic that was on the left and not the one that was on the right because I couldn't figure out for the life of me, and I probably will after I finish this review, to be honest. I finally got accustomed to the main mechanics except for the one I mentioned prior and made my loadout after reading through everything instead of just charging in and trying to fight the boss with my bare hands, and I was able to beat the first boss. But again, that was not without tons of trial and error. This game definitely gives you an easier time than Dark Souls 3 does because you can at least use your currency to buy things before beating the boss. In Dark Souls 3, you just have to fight the boss and win with what you have, which is basically your ticket forward. This game has the same concept, but definitely is a lot more forgiving. After beating the boss, you get to meet everybody inside the hotel. Basically just like in Dark Souls 3 when you beat the boss and you get to meet everybody inside the castle and then you can level up your character. The exact same thing is present in Lies of P. The game ran amazingly. All the graphics were at the highest that I could put them and I didn't have a single hiccup in my frame rate, and the game felt incredibly smooth throughout. AAA devs should definitely take some notes. And what's funny is that I never heard of neither the developer nor the publisher of the game. The developers had only worked on one game prior to this one, and that was Bless Unleashed, a free-to-play MMORPG, and after watching some gameplay on it, yeah, I don't know how they managed to do so well with the game. Not ripping at the devs or anything, the other game just does not look like my cup of tea. Now you might be asking yourself, why are you comparing this game to Dark Souls 3? Well, if you just look at the game, the game is clearly a Souls-like, and it definitely plays like one. The reason I compare it to Dark Souls 3 so much is because they start off very similarly. The key difference is that LOP allows you to experience everything and get an understanding of the combat before you start playing. DS3 doesn't. Now remember how I told you in Dark Souls 3 you fight a couple enemies and then you move to the boss? Well, in LOP you actually fight a couple enemies, fight a mini boss, and then you move forward, fight a couple more enemies, and then fight the actual, first boss. When I originally played Dark Souls 3 for the first time, I died died by that first boss so many times, it was unbelievable, and my friend Arkham, who got the game for me, had to wait like a solid hour or two before we actually got to play together. And I streamed our entire playthrough of this game together when we got it a few years back. I loved the game to death, and the reason why I never beat it completely is because when I factory reset my old PC, I lost all of my save files for Dark Souls, so I just never ended up playing it again. All of that work that we put into the main game was basically soiled at that point, and me and Ark had beat the main story. We were literally on our way to beat the rest of the DLC because we were doing super well, and then that happened. The thing I was worried about when getting the footage from Dark Souls 3 was the fact that I was expecting to die from the boss at the beginning, and no, I actually didn't. I could put the entire gameplay of me beating the boss in first try, but I won't. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's really not that groundbreaking to do. I know a lot of people can do it. I'll just show the fact that I did beat him and move on because it's not important. Back to the game. In Lies of P, you start off in a train. Upon leaving the train, you're met with puppets. They're all easy to kill, so it's not an issue. You then move forward into a building, then make a right where you will find two more enemies. A regular enemy, at least to me he's regular, and one with a pistol. Sound familiar? I know. Dark Souls 3 basically has the same thing, except the enemy that shoots at you uses a crossbow and not a pistol. But this is why I'm comparing the games. There are other games I could compare it to as well, like Mortal Shell, Sekiro, Armored Core 6, but it makes sense to relate it to the game that it looks the most like. Now, with all of this in mind, is it worth it to play? Yes, it definitely is. While the game does piss me off with the fact that I can't dodge at the same rate and speed that I can in Dark Souls 3, you have to look past that and remember that you're not playing a Souls game, you are playing Lies of P. You have to abide by the rules and figure out ways to make your playstyle suit you. I would honestly give this game a solid 8-7 out of 10. The game has a solid story, great foundation. The combat is not bad once you get used to it. It's definitely one of those games that will make you rage, but it's rewarding and it doesn't make you feel so depressed. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you want me to play next, whether it be a single player, multiplayer game, first person shooter, third person game. I don't care. I love it all. See you later.